Hi, we're going to be practicing ellipses. I'm doing a few freehand ellipses by hovering within a frame. This helps guide and get a better control over drawing of ellipses. So no matter whether your ellipse really looks like one, it will be a good exercise to keep practicing ellipses, and as it gives a lot of control to the way we handle our pencil on the paper. So you can do a few freehand lines like this and keep changing the direction of your ellipses within that frame. Try to speed up, try to slow down, try to space the ellipses, try to clutter the ellipses, try to change the direction. Okay, so you could go on. This is an interesting exercise. Sometimes it's even just a good warm up or a good meditative kind of an exercise. Often drawing circles in perspective, as we call drawing ellipses. When you look at the rim or the opening of a cup, of a tea cup, of a mug, of a vessel or anything, or a wheel of a vehicle, you find that when you see a circle in perspective, it becomes ellipsoid. So ellipses are vital to drawing, and therefore it's a good idea and a good habit as an artist to develop freehand ellipses. You would have already noticed when you see a series of ellipses diminishing in size, they already give you a feeling of perspective. Feel free to attempt and please draw along with me. It doesn't matter if your ellipse doesn't look perfect. Over time, it will. Today, I plan to show you a few employments of ellipses. I also want to show you some effects of light and shade and how drawing freehand, drawing using warm-up exercises, drawing as warm-up exercises, and just imaginatively drawing shapes or converting ellipses into different kinds of objects that you see around, how to work on those things. I'm just going to show you. That's the plan for this video. So please stay on, keep watching. We'll do more on perspective sometime later. So on a fresh page, I'm just going to plot out a few ellipses. If you notice, you could draw your ellipse from a corner. You could also draw an ellipse from any point, any angle. It depends on your convenience of your wrist. Okay, your drawing angle, the way you draw, the ease of your wrist movement, and so on. And the size of the ellipse, of course. So if you want to draw a big ellipse or a small ellipse, a wide ellipse or a narrow ellipse, all that is up to you. So I'm just again last page I drew it with a guideline. Now I don't have any guideline, nor do I have any plan. I'm just doing a few ellipses. We will be correcting them because I can see that they are not perfect ellipses, but this is just to encourage you to practice so that you are not so conditioned by the outcome, and therefore you don't have a fear in you. In fact, it should be a very playful kind of an exercise where you try out a lot, and it's mostly when you try out that you get good results. Did you notice what I did now? I started from the center and then created the ellipse. Now I think I have enough ellipses on this page, so I've started creating just a few lines around it, and let's see what kind of shapes emerge, what happens to these practice lines. This is also part of practice. This is also part of imaginative exercises. Okay, so I seem to be doing a lot of cups, bowls, soap dishes, coins, vessels, shallow bowls, and so on today. Let's see. I'm just going to try to take it to the next level by employing some shading. And if you follow along with me and just really try a few of these, you would get a great sense of, it's a sort of a very simple principle that I'm going to show you today, teach you today. And once you've employed that principle in one drawing and a few practice drawings, believe me, you would have got the basic aspect of drawing. That's a dog's bowl, food bowl. Okay, now the lower ellipse, I might be making some changes over here. Okay, just follow along and let's see. Just do a few things. I will be using my eraser because what I'm drawing now is just like it's not premeditated. It's just extempore. It's just spontaneous. Okay. And don't worry about mistakes. Often when we think about mistakes, I know that one doesn't look good. Don't worry so much about mistakes. It's not that I'm asking you to make perfect drawings or make mistakes, but then of course mistakes can be corrected, improved, remedied. Okay. Remember that every shape of yours needs an axis, an x-axis and a y-axis. Okay, so your shape could develop from any part of the ellipse, and you have to consider the center part of your drawing, of your object, as far as possible. Right now I'm imagining them, so I haven't really put them on this because I also intend to show you some shading, and if I do the shading with that line and I'll have to erase it, I think that would not serve the purpose of this video. So I am using a shading pencil, a kind of a 6B pencil, and I'm doing the entire work with this pencil without changing my pencil really. And if you notice, I am rolling my pencil. And if you also notice, I keep changing the position, not just the grip, but the point at which, or the distance between the lead and the end of the pencil. So either it is sharp, it is close to the lead, to the graphite tip if I want a more precise work, and if I want a loose work, I take it farther away. Okay, so either midpoint or even further. So if I want a very light work, sometimes I even can just put it between my two fingers, my forefinger and And I can just, my forefinger and my middle finger, and I can just work very lightly. I hope you get the point. I don't even need my thumb. I can just guide it very loosely. Okay, I hope you can see that effect. So now I'm just putting some shade on either corners of most of these, or one corner or either corners of most of these ellipses, and waiting to see what kind of variations we can make, and how ellipses are useful in practice drawing, in imaginative drawing, in coming up with different kinds of shapes, in visualizing shapes, visualizing designs, man-made designs, product designs, in forms, and so on. So here I'm bringing out a few stumps, but I need only one of them. I'm going to use the middle-sized one. And I am going to soften the shading. Now this is okay for this kind of a paper, and this demonstration is mainly to show you the effects of light and shade, and a sort of a very simple principle of the alternating of light and shade in a three-dimensional object. How to get volume, how to give a feeling of an object in space. Okay, so I'm using the stub. I can do it in two ways. I can start from the light and then go to the dark, or I can do it from the dark and spread the graphite into the remaining part of the shape. But I remember to leave it. One portion of it on the right side is deliberately being left out so as to give a feeling of light and shade. So here I'm just presuming that there is a light source from one particular side. This kind of a presumption helps us when it comes to visualizing, imagining and visualizing products. This is not a see and draw, an observational drawing exercise. Okay. So after I complete doing the outer form, I'm moving into the ellipse as such, the area of the ellipse, and I'm using the diagonally opposite area to give a lighting effect. Before that, I think I've just made up my mind to go ahead and darken the outer area so that I give a little bit of a value tone. As I said, I'm just using 6B pencil, and since I have softened it with the stub, with the stump or with the torsion, with the paper stump, I'm just going over it in the darker area so that I can give a little more three-dimensionality, a feeling of three-dimensionality, which adds to the appearance of realism of an object. So this, I want to convert it more into a bowl sort of a shape. Here in this one, my shape is kind of off and it looks really weird. So I'm going to correct the shape a little bit. This was just a loose drawing, so it's bound to have a few errors in it, and you can correct them in this way by just going over it, by erasing, by creating improved lines, or by even changing the design, like serendipity. So you could use a point eraser or just a normal eraser. Here I'm just using a normal eraser, and this is just a practice or a sort of a warm-up drawing. So I'm just relaxed with the way I'm using my materials. It's not very serious. Now, if you noticed, the first one I did a light shading on the inner side, the one on the right side, but this one I'm going to shade in the opposite area, but diagonally opposite area, but I'm going to shade outside the object, and I'm going to show you how it's going to look, and you would see as the drawing develops the kind of effect. there is one principle in drawing, and that is the principle of the alternating of light and shade. You would notice that, just look at light falling on objects around you, and you would notice that wherever there is a shadow, the area next to it has got light, and just next to it again has got a shadow, and then again light, and so on. So it's a kind of a rule of thumb that light and shade alternate. So if you keep this very simple principle in mind and you try to draw a few things, this would help us greatly when it comes to imaginative drawing, to illustrations, to still life objects, of course, to shading, and to shading different kinds of objects, for product design, for a lot of applications, for a lot of applications, and just for the pleasure of drawing and creating. What does this look like now? So if I leave a clear border around it, then that becomes a different kind of a shape. So you will have to learn values. You will have to learn to give a whole range of values, from dark to light or from light to dark, in order to bring about a convincing effect. Now, if you see, if I leave a rim, it would look like there is a kind of a thick rim around it. If I take it right up to the edge, then I'm going to lose the highlight, which sort of convinces me that the object is placed in a background where there is a particular light source, and there is light falling in one direction, and then the form really pops out, and so on. So I have to create a gradation, and I can use a stump, I can use a zero eraser. Right now I'm just using the eraser that I find in the back of my microtip pencil, or the technical pencil, and that's quite enough for me for this particular work. Now, if I've done a background and if I've done an object, I obviously need to also create a shadow. We do that, right, with a lot of our applications, on a lot of programs and your presentations and so on, for text, for images, and so on. So it's the same that we are going to employ in our object drawing. And you would notice that the shadow would be darkest closer to the object, and lighter or sort of diffused as it comes farther away. Note the way I'm holding my pencil for drawing, and for very precise drawing, my finger goes right up to the tip of the pencil. So here I'm not aiming at defining the entire outline or the contour, but I'm just refining a few edges, and I'm just creating a little more dark. Beware of doing continuous complete outlines. Don't do that. Instead, give suggestions through alternating of light and shade. That is one of the best principles of drawing. And once you've mastered this, once you've got this principle in your mind, a lot of your drawing becomes very simple. Whether you do portraits or landscapes or whatever, whether you use a paint medium or whether you're using any other marker medium or color medium, coloring medium, it's the same principle that's going to be applied. So pay attention to this, focus on this a little bit now, practice this, get it well, be critical when you look at your own drawing, and improve your drawing skills. You could create various textural effects also if you want in your drawing. As you're drawing, experiment with them. So whether you want to make your object, look like ceramic or glass or wood or plastic, or all that is up to you. When we do shadows, please notice if your shadow is disconnected with your object will look like it is floating. If your shadow is connected to the object, especially to the darker side, you got to beware or watch out for the effects. There would be a very light, very subtle kind of a difference between the object and shadow. So all that is a matter of skill, observation, time, practice, and so on. So probably after this exercise, you would begin to observe much better. That's the aim of this video, that you would try to arrange still lifes, objects in front of you as still life arrangement, and you would start looking at it and drawing, practice drawing. So here I'm just stippling and putting some sort of marks or effects in addition to the tone. You could also go ahead and give it some color, like I'm using this yellow over here. But this could be a wooden bowl, this could be a metal bowl, or whatever you think. So I'm also trying to just put some brown and maybe look like a coconut shell bowl to me. When you use graphite, color, the black color pencil really doesn't work except for giving a few accents. Now there is a difference between accent and highlight. Sometimes you need to give a few accents in your drawing, sometimes you need to give a few highlights in your drawing. So highlight, as the name goes, is light. Accent is sort of some area where your eye would first go to. Okay, so these are the little tips and tricks that come about in observational drawing, in imaginative drawing, or in drawing where you create a convincing sense of reality. Okay, so now as you notice, I'm not looking at anything. I'm just imagining and drawing. There isn't any object in front of me. I had just practiced a few ellipses, and then I'm just playing about with shading, and trying to create some objects. So I encourage you to practice like this. Draw along with me and then practice. So look at a coconut shell, broken coconut shell with the coconut inside it, without the coconut inside it. Place the coconut, the way the one below is. Or you could also place the coconut in front of you, in a sort of facing you, facing either left side or right side, sort of standing. You could put it upon a textured surface where it would you could prop it up in some way or so on. And look at it and try to draw. Observe and draw. So this is like a shallow bowl or a sort of plate that I'm trying to draw now. Again, you can see that I'm trying to create some shading on the opposite direction, and that already helps create an illusion of three-dimensionality, of form. So as just like I'm using a 6B pencil, and either you could use it over and over, create effects, or you could use various graphite pencils, like from 2B to 4B to 12B, to create different effects. Now, I don't know, maybe you're thinking, like me, that why doesn't she stop over here? So at many times, that's very important, that you know where to stop in your drawing. You could mess up your drawing by working it. But that again is a question of practice, experience. Okay, so just keep working on it. See that shadow area, that point where the shadow meets the object, that differentiation is very subtle and very important.
So I changed the value over here. I've been drawing for years, and therefore I sort of iterate and try out things on the paper. But if you want to be very careful and safe and perfect, or sort of guarantee your effects, then you will have to practice. Okay, so if you notice, I'm just trying to vary stuff over here. I don't know what that thing on the right is. Let's see if I can think of something. So if you have a light source that's like coming on top, from behind you, from in front of you, imagine all those things. Try to imagine all those things. Look at those things. Look at objects, different objects at different times of the day, or different types of light, or different positions or angles, and notice, consciously notice how they appear. We take a lot of things in our lives for granted. Drawing actually helps correct those mistakes, taking things for granted, because you begin observing fresh. So now here there's another point, the ellipse and the base of the ellipse. Depends on the kind of the shape that you're going to draw. They actually echo each other. It's important that the base of your object also has a kind of a contour, ellipsoid line, or a curve, or a curvature that resembles the
or echoes the outer line, the upper line. Here I'm just erasing out some areas after giving a soft shading behind, and that helps give a sense of your reflection. Could look like a ceramic dish. You could refine and define your contours or your outlines. If you notice, product design artists, a lot of product designers, imaginative product designers, they have to bring out form from nowhere. So how do they bring out that kind of a form? By visualizing, by practicing, and visualizing from imagination is a very good practice. I'm moving on to other objects just so that we try to get a sense of variety or variations. I think I can speed up a little bit from this point. So let's just observe what I'm doing. Unless it's important that I have to say something to you, let's just observe. I've just extended the object over here. I don't know, it's like a little container. There's a glare, I'm sorry for that. feel of, so if your hand moves, if you're familiar with various directions, various ways of handling your pencil or your tools, it
If you see lines that are lines dark, harsh, you can soften them. If you see too much of darkness, you can pick them up with a kneadable eraser, an eraser, just a normal eraser, or you could smudge in a little more, or you could darken the other area. So there are a lot of possibilities and a lot of ways of doing it. So the point is that you got to just practice, you got to try. I'm trying to soften the shape, the edges of it. And shrink your eyes, sort of make your eyes a little out of focus when you look at things. Just shrink your eyes a little bit and look at it. When you do that, the clarity goes, and then you see a lot of tonality in your drawing. That's a good practice. This looks more like a chalice of some sort. So I could also convert it into some kind of a shape. And you see, we have beautiful little oil lamps, thick lamps in this shape. So I have a center point. Since my object has got a sharp end, of course I can't leave it like that. It's not going to be standing, it's not condensing. So I'm erasing this axis thing, and I'm going to put an object here. Make this into an object, into a more realistic or believable object. Center line, the guideline, the construction line. And then I'm going to put an object here. And then I'm going to put an object here. And then I'm going to put an object here. And then I'm going to put an object here. And then I'm going to put an object here. And then I'm going to put an object here. And then I'm going to put an object here. And then I'm going to put an object here. And then I'm going to put an object here. And then I'm going to put an object here. And then I'm going to put an object here. And then I'm going to put an object here. And then I'm going to put an object here. And then I'm going to put an object here. And then I'm going to put an object here. And then I'm going to put an object here. And then I'm going to put an object here. And then I'm going to put an object here. And then I'm going to put an object here. And then I'm going to put an object here. And then I'm going to put an object here. And then I'm going to put an object here. And then I'm going to put an object here. And then I'm going to put an object here. And then I'm going to put an object here. And then I'm going to put an object here. And then I'm going to put an object here. And then I'm going to put an object here. And then I'm going to put an object here. And then I'm going to put an object here. And then I'm going to put an object here. aim to draw objects. That's okay. You need to know how to draw them. And then you draw what you want. Sometimes when you draw objects that are highly reflective or transparent, you don't really focus so much on the shadow part of it or the base part of it. And that's okay. I'm just going to try to do a few things with those vertical ellipses. And therefore, now I'm not going to convert them into flat discs anymore. I'm going to create them into rings. So how do I do that? By just having a set of parallel ellipses, ellipses that are parallel to each other, and a straight line on top. Remember how you've drawn grass in school, in school days, when you used to draw grass on the ground, and you had to show it like a teeth, and you wanted to show it bent, more like a calligraphy line. You notice that it becomes thin in one place, thick in one place, and then it becomes thin in another place.
So by perspective, the distant part of the drawing could be narrower than the one that is in front of me. I could also draw it the same size. When you sketch, you could use a series of crosshairs, or you could use a series of short lines. That's sketching. That's not drawing, that is sketching. Sketching loosely or drawing loosely. Now this part of the drawing becomes a little ambiguous because you don't know which one is in front of you, which is closer to you, which is away from you. One simple rule of thumb would be that the object that is closer to you would have more light, and the object or the area farther away from you could be darker. So you'll again have to play about with those kind of impressions. Do you see the importance of a perfect ellipse, of drawing ellipses well? But still, there were guidelines, even though there were some errors, and you could always correct them. Something like a bangle. What I'm trying to get is like a ring or like a bangle. I've done discs and objects, cups, and so on, containers. So let's do some shading here to give it a kind of a little embossed effect. Okay, as I said, the one farther away can be a little darker than the area closer to you. Now if you look at my previous drawing, the one on the left next to the previous ring, you see that really looks flat, solid, like a tire, like a wheel, like a sort of a plastic lid or something. Now if I do a highlight, if I erase, there's going to be a bit of relief or 3D effect over here. Again, you shrink your eyes and you look at it. You could have, since this is an imaginative drawing, it's not a perfect drawing, it's not an observational drawing, there could be some illusions. So you could see it differently. You could see it very different from the way I'm imagining it to be. And I can't blame you, you can't blame me for seeing it that way. It's just the way we see. Okay, maybe this is a bangle, like we have our gold bangles, sort of a relief bangle. So I could create some patterns on it, or a slight 3D effect where I use the contour, upper contour, till I come to the center, and then I use the lower contour to come to the lower part of it. You could have feathery lines, and then you could perfect your lines. Okay. I want to create some kind of, I don't know, headphone or some sort of man-made object over here. Because of the type of shape, it reminds me of our earplugs or the headphones. So this is the way, or this is one of the ways in which product designers begin imagining new ideas, new possibilities, new things, new designs. One thing I want you to beware of or avoid is the use of outlines. In this particular video, I do see a lot of outlines, but this exercise was more focused on ellipses and imagination and coming out with possibilities using ellipses, and therefore I wasn't so much concentrating on the exclusion of lines in the shapes, in the drawing that I'm doing. But you'll have to remember that you have to beware of lines. You can use thick and thin lines. You can use contrasts in values, in shades, and avoid a clear-cut outline. Instead, you could try to think about the background, shading the background instead of creating outlines. Okay, I'm just showing this a little closer. It looks like a world of objects. That's a dog's bowl, feeding bowl, a pet feeding bowl, a metallic pet feeding bowl. Okay. Your objects don't have to be anything recognizable, but just that if it so happens that you have something in front of you, you can recall it. Change directions when you do your strokes. That helps soften your drawing. Notice values or change in tones, dark values. Use a stump or an eraser, a kneadable eraser, or darken areas where you think must have more depth, more volume, more shadow. Now I need to definitely correct this line. If that's my line, it has to echo that line. The outline echoes the ellipsoid curve. So spend about an hour a day, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, just practicing a few things like this, sort of a visual record. And trust me, you would only get better with your observation, with the manner in which you can come up with uh, creative ways of convincing, uh, creating a convincing impact of what you are imagining in your drawing. And wherever you use uh, value, wherever you go about with a lot of um, subtle work, there it definitely shows. When it comes to outlines and bold drawings, you can do a lot of bold freehand work using your arms, your elbows, and then your wrist and so on. But it's all a question of practice and thinking where exactly you're going to apply this understanding. Okay, and that's very important in your drawing. The logic, the imagination, the imaginativeness in your drawing. Just looking for the stump. It could be lighter. The shadow could be much lighter. When you do transparent objects, they're different. So therefore you start now. If you do a few exercises like this, imaginative exercises, so you watch some demonstrations, you begin to get a sense of, oh yes, I can do this too myself. And you also begin observing much better. Right now, instead of having this outline on the right side, I could do a dark background or a colored background, and that would give me more of an effect, more of a realistic effect, like we had in that first bowl that we did. So, the important things that you take away from this exercise, this video, is PRACTICE. So please practice. Bye.